The sky was black, and only in the west, where the sun had recently set, it was blue. A thin streak burns across the horizon like a lipless mouth stretched out in a grin, stained red like the kind they cut into hollowed-out pumpkins on the last day of October. Little Jacob opens the creaky door and steps outside. It is a student's evening. The trees are restless. The road and sidewalk are strewn with whispering fallen leaves. Under the tin hood of the street lamp, the electricity caught in the bubble lamp itches, and a spot of light creeps across the leaves, yellow as wax, scarlet like a scraped knee, brown like spots on aged skin. Little Jacob is not supposed to be outside, but today is a holiday, and the usual rules don't apply. The little house Jacob has escaped from is on the outskirts of town. In order to take part in the fun, he must hurry to the center of town. Jacob dashes between the houses, whose windows are dark and blind, gliding from lantern to lantern in a white silhouette. The wind tosses a pile of leaves at him from around the corner, and Jacob is swayed by the gust, but he does not lose his stride. When he sees more and more of the warm yellow windows in the houses, Jacob moderates his stride and keeps his eyes open. The first door always makes him anxious, whether out of embarrassment at the visit or because the holiday is upon us. Jacob decides to enter the late shop first. At least he won't have to knock. The bell rings. Inside it is bright and heated. Behind the counter stands a burly, mustachioed owner in a sugar cap and apron. On the shelves are pies, pretzels, rolls. Jacob feels as if the smell of vanilla tickles his nose. The baker leans forward, resting his belly on the counter, his thick blonde mustache poking up, pulled apart by a smile. Well, do we have guests? What ugly ones. Give me a drink or there'll be trouble. Jacob exhales. His own voice almost frightens him. Ho 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 ho, rolls the baker, leaning back. His hands at his sides make him look like a sugar bowl. I think I'll take a treat. He turns to the shelves, picks up a puffy muffin, holds it out to Jacob. Jacob awkwardly sets the bag down. The baker looks questioningly at the bag, snatches a paper bag from the side, places the loaf in it, and only then puts Jacob's loot into the bag. Jacob hastily presses his fists with the cloth clutched in them to his chest. But the baker murmurs, "Wait." Another bag is filled with candy, rolling clatteringly from a half-round scoop, and falls into Jacob's sack. "Thank you," Jacob whispers. "Now run along," says the baker. The bell jingles once more. Outside, the wind rushes against him, and Jacob covers the cloth-wrapped bun with his palm, soft, warm, almost alive. Running across the street, Jacob rushes at random to the new door and rattles the hammer dangling from the hinge on the metal plaque. The door swings open, and the doorway is filled with a good-natured fat woman fixing her hair. Jacob opens his mouth, the wind blowing out of his teeth. "Help yourself, or else there'll be trouble." "You little monster." The fat woman smiles, putting her chubby fingers on the chins, which are crammed together like a stack of pancakes. "Come on in." She slides back into the dwelling, making way for Jacob. Jacob steps across the threshold. There is a lot of yellow in the room he enters. The wallpaper is yellow. The cup and saucer on the table glisten with leafy rims, and the fat woman's hands are decorated with blown gold jewelry. "Now I'm going to get you some presents," smacks the fat lady. She seems to be a dainty person herself. Next to the tea couple, there is a plate with cookies, jam in 2 fougere vases, and a full candy bowl. Having heroically parted with the sweet ransom, the fat lady lets Jacob out into the street. Another door has a bell. Jacob presses the button. He is opened by a dapper gentleman with a thin mustache in a tuxedo, white vest and tie. There is music coming from somewhere inside, a piano playing. "Give me a drink or I'll be in trouble." "Who's there?" I hear a woman's voice muffled by the distance. "It's nothing, my dear, it's just a monster," replied the gentleman carelessly, turning half-turned toward the hall. The black folds of his tailcoat glisten and seem stiff, as if starched. Slipping his fingers into his vest pocket, the gentleman pulls out a coin and tosses it just enough for Jacob to catch. "Buy yourself a treat to your liking, boy." The door slams shut. Jacob continues his trek. The wind nudges him. Hurry, hurry. There is less and less time left. The feast has its deadlines. The trees crunch their rheumatic limbs. The leaves crowd around their feet. The lanterns sway, and the hollowed-out pumpkin heads with their red eyes and mouths sway. Jacob knocks on all the doors in a row. A dry old woman with tender wrinkles in her eyes interrupts her knitting for a moment and hands him an apple, her black cat watching Jacob warily. A middle-aged couple presents candy. The wife blinks away a tear. The husband smokes a pipe. A lone woman in a long skirt and high boots, iron-rimmed glasses on a dull nose, hair gathered into a pretzel on her forehead, pulls a box from a violin case and gives Jacob sticky mints. Jacob's sack is full. "That's it," the wind sighs. The yellow windows go out one by one. It's time for Jacob to go back. He hurries back the same way. In front of the shop he visited first, the sugar baker hangs up the shutters. When he notices Jacob, the baker waves his hand in greeting. Jacob turns down the alley and the baker returns to his place, locks the door, looks thoughtfully at the shelf where, among the rows of baked goods, there is a single scratch. The baker pulls the steel shutter. The flame hums in the stove mouth that opened in the wall in front of him. Sighing, the baker throws the buns into the fire, tongue swirling, licking the handouts. Papier-mâché blackens, colored wax melts, candy explodes in Bertolt swarms. Heat blazes from the mouth. The baker's face bursts like an overcooked pie, glossy skin green in the rupture. Paul fumbles for the light switch, and the shop lights go out. In the glow of the flames, a gusty, moving figure continues to dismantle the decorations. The festivities are over. Jacob, who is in a hurry, does not see it. Nor does he see how the fat woman in the yellow room gets rid of her wig, puts her chubby fingers to the top of her head, and begins to pull off her disguise as if she were peeling a wiener, revealing a bare, pale head with faded eyes, bloated even more. It resembles the release of a caterpillar that has left its cocoon for some unknown reason. There are 3 warts on the damp face. The one on the nose moves its hairs, breaks off from the skin, and a spider with a pustular body cautiously moves to the puffy lip and stops there. The lamp goes out. In the house nearby, a glossy gentleman lies down on the floor, clomping his chitinous coattails, crawling crazily around the furniture. The piano, confused, repeats a fragment of the same musical phrase over and over in the darkness. Jacob is in a hurry. He plucks someone's gourd as he walks, the candlelight still glowing inside. The street lamps fade, dissolving into darkness. The old woman leaves her knitting and sticks a needle into the cat. With frugal steps, she approaches the cellar door, descends the steps, disappears. Soon, someone's short, piteous scream comes from downstairs, choked, cut short. Her neighbors, a middle-aged couple, are sitting without light, huddled in different corners of the house. Unable to see each other, they get up at the same time and start making their way towards each other. The husband has a strip of razor in his hand, and the wife has a poker in her fist. The extinguished pipe is lying in the corner. Somewhere nearby, a woman with a droopy nose makes a loop out of a thin violin string. The yellow windows go out, out, out. When Jacob reaches the outskirts, the town is as black as night itself. The door creaks open. Throwing away the pumpkin, Jacob, with a candle burner in one hand and a sack in the other, rises and quietly enters the room. He sits down, hesitates, delaying the pleasure, but he can't delay much longer. Jacob unties the bag and begins to look at his treasures. The colorful wrappers scratch against each other like disturbed insects. Chocolate, caramel, Lollipops, nougat, mesmerize, beckon, seduce. Jacob knows he can only have one candy. For a long time he chooses, shifting, shuffling the sweets. Finally, he stops at a large lollipop ball, in whose matte thickness he can see stars fused into it unknowingly. Jacob peels the ball out of the transparent, crunchy wrapper and gently pops it into his mouth. With the candy in his cheek, a happy Jacob leaves the room and walks down the stairs. It's time for him to go to bed. On the last step, the candlelight goes out, choking on the molten wax, but Jacob doesn't need the light anymore. In the corner of the cellar, Jacob climbs into his dusty box and settles into the cramped old boards. He closes his eyes. There is a faint smile on his lips, invisible to anyone but the spiders that will soon wrap his face in loose felt. Jacob will not be able to rise again until a year from now, on November Eve. But the sweet candy resting in his dry little mouth will remind him of the last holiday,